Hello lovebirds, welcome to another episode of Nick in the Kitchen. As you can probably tell from that greeting, it's Valentine's Day, or at least Valentine's Day themed here on today's episode. And I'm gonna be showing you guys how to make two different desserts that you can enjoy with your significant other, with a friend, by yourself. I'm not judging, so let's jump into it. First, we're gonna make some creme brulee, but the kicker here is that they're low carb. They're completely keto friendly. It's one of the recipes that's really easy to make keto. And so we're gonna do that today. And then we're gonna jump into some brownie cakes, and you can make them keto if you want to by making very simple substitutions, but the recipe today is full on unctuous, chocolatey brownie cake goodness. So let's jump into it. All right, so let's start with our keto creme brulees. The first thing we're gonna do is, to a bowl, we have some egg yolks. That means I've separated out the whites and I have just the yolks in the bowl. We want that because essentially creme brulee, you know, it's a custard, it's a pudding. So that's egg yolks to make it really rich in flavor. With hot cream, we're gonna temper the eggs and get it going. So let's start with that. 3 egg yolks for 3 creme brulees. It's a very simple recipe. And we're gonna add in 1/4 a cup of our sweetener. I like to use allulose because I feel like it has the most similar taste to sugar. It doesn't have that cooling effect that you sometimes get with other sugars. So I'm gonna add that right in, and it's a 1-for-1 swap with sugar. So it's not ultra sweet or anything. And then I'm just gonna add in a pinch of salt. You always wanna add in a little bit of salt to your desserts because it helps it to balance out that sweetness and bring out the flavors. Salt really does bring out other flavors that exist. It doesn't just add saltiness. When you think about seasoning savory dishes, sometimes it has a lot of different flavors, but it's missing something, and just a little bit of salt can take it there. So we're gonna whisk all 3 of those ingredients together pretty much until we get like a pale yellow color. I also have some heavy cream and vanilla going here. When it comes up to a light boil, I'm gonna turn it off and let it cool just slightly before I add it to the eggs. There's 2 ways you can do this. I'm showing you the easiest way. You can add the cream to here a little bit, temper the eggs, and then add it back in and let it thicken up a little bit. But you really don't have to do that with creme brulee. You can just add all your hot liquid into your eggs while whisking and add it directly to your ramekins, which is what we're gonna do. That's boiling. And so I'm gonna remove it from the heat and just let it cool down slightly before we add it in, because I'm still going for this pale yellow color here. And so we're whisking it. It's getting there, as you can see. It's getting to that pale yellow color. It's gonna be thick because it's just the yolks. There's no whites here. But I really love this. This is also basically an ice cream base. So creme brulee is kind of like baked ice cream is what I like to think of it as. It has the same flavor. If you use really good vanilla and some heavy cream, you get a really delicious dessert. All right, so we got this whisked. You see it's kind of thickened up. It's a little bit like a paste, thinner, so we're gonna go with that. Before we add in our cream, because we're still letting it cool a little bit, we're gonna add in some brandy. You can use cognac, you can use Grand Marnier. You can pretty much use any type of alcohol you want or spirit you want. I like to go with brandy because I think it just adds the right amount of flavor without being overpowering. So I'm gonna whisk that in. Also, you know, you get a little bit of brandy in your dessert, you get a little bit of wine on your table. It can be a fun Valentine's Day for you, you know what I mean? And so we're just gonna keep whisking this around. It already smells really good just with the brandy added to the eggs, and you can smell the vanilla. I use vanilla bean paste instead of vanilla extract. It adds a lot more flavor, and it's concentrated, and it gives you the little look of vanilla beans in your dish, so you get the little specks, which I love. And so to add this in, we wanna make sure that we don't scramble our eggs. So it's 2 steps. You wanna whisk. At the same time, you're adding in your liquid, and you just want to add in a little bit of liquid at a time. That way you can make sure that you're incorporating it. You can see it's still very smoky, still very steamy. So we're gonna whisk and we're gonna pour. A little bit at a time. Whisk and pour, whisk and pour. And this is tempering, and what it's doing, it is cooking our eggs or bringing them up to temperature without scrambling them, because we do not want scrambled eggs. It will ruin an ice cream base. It will ruin a pudding. It will ruin a creme brulee. And so we're just adding this a little bit at a time. Gonna whisk this around and ladle in. And this is just a very simple process. Like I said, if you were making ice cream, you could do it the same way. If you've made my banana pudding recipe, you've probably done something like this already, because my banana pudding requires homemade pudding. It just tastes better that way. And this is one of those dishes where people associate it with like being fancy. So if you're doing an at-home kind of quarantine Valentine's Day, this will really get it going. And the same recipe works if you don't want to keep it keto and you want to use regular sugar. You can 100% do that. Like I said, it's a 1-for-1 swap. So you're going to get the same flavor, same sweetness, just not low carb. All right, so our eggs are pretty tempered. So what I'm gonna do is add in the rest of our cream here from the pot in a constant stream. And we're just going to keep whisking until everything's added in. This smells so good because it's got that rich vanilla flavor mixed with the brandy. It just gives you a really nice flavor altogether. You can also add in a little bit of orange zest with the Grand Marnier if you want to go that route. You can do some amaretto, which gives it more of a cherry flavor, especially if you're going to top it with fresh fruit once it's baked. And now that we have that there, I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to grab my little ramekins here. So this recipe makes 3 because I truly believe that one of the keys to a successful relationship is never having to share dessert. Or any food for that matter. So we make 3. 1 for you to share if you want to be a little love bug, and then the other 2 so you can each have your own when you're tired of faking for the people like you wanted to share in the first place. So we're gonna add these in. You don't have to butter a ramekin or anything. You just add them directly into here. And these are 6-ounce ramekins. So we're gonna add them in just like this. I like to add in the very last ladle to these once they're in my oven, in the pan, because it's easier to transport them over than to try to do this kind of balancing act. It's too much. So I'm gonna add these right in like this. And this makes exactly 3. So it's not all the way to the top, which is great. But if you end up going a little bit over, or you find that your ramekins aren't quite as big, just fill them up almost all the way and then put them in your pan and then add the rest. It'll just make your life so much easier. So we're gonna add these to the pan and add hot water to it, and then we're gonna put it in the oven. So we're gonna add these into the oven, and you just wanna put them in some sort of pan that will allow you to pour boiling water halfway up the sides. It's easiest if you do this while they're in the oven so you don't transport them with hot water to burn yourself or to get the hot water into the pan. And so I'm just gonna tilt this a little bit. And it's hot, so be careful. And we just want this to go up halfway around the sides like so. And then carefully put this back into the oven without getting water into them. And you're gonna bake them until the middles are a little bit jiggly, but the edges are set. And you're gonna refrigerate them for 2 hours, but really overnight is best, so 8 hours or so. All right, so our creme brulees are out of the oven, out of their little sauna steam bath. And so I just wanna show you, they're mostly set, but the middles are still pretty jiggly. That means that they're ready to come out, and also that we'll have a really good texture when we take these out of the fridge. So I'm gonna take them out of the water and put them in the fridge. And again, they'll stay for at least 2 hours, and they can actually be refrigerated for up to 3 days. But I would say give them 8 hours if you wanna eat them sooner. All right, you guys, so we've baked our creme brulee and we put them in the fridge. Well, they're in the fridge now. Really, I had to make these in advance because they do need to set up, and to get the right texture, you really want to give them enough time to get to this point where they're custardy and delicious. And so traditionally with creme brulee, you add on sugar and then you torch it to make it like this caramel top that you can crack into. Unfortunately, with keto versions, what I find is that a lot of them get gummy and some of them won't even brown. So what I did instead was made a keto caramel, and that way we're able to get a brown top, and it's not crunchy, but it is something for us, and it's a salted caramel, so I like that better actually. And then we're gonna add this directly to the top of our creme brulees. And this makes it kind of fun and cute. If you're very artistic, you can like write a message with these or something. I'm not that artistic, so that'd be very difficult for me. But I do like the shape of these ramekins in general. And they're the same size. So as you can see, I was able to make 3. They're slightly smaller, so they actually fill up to the top. But either way, it's a good go. And with this caramel that's homemade, you really get that like deep, rich caramel flavor that comes from cooking down sugar. If you need some help with making caramel, just let me know. I could always help you guys out with that a little bit. Drop something on my Instagram. So we're going to just spread this over the top just a little bit so it's not all in one place. And also it kind of gives you that creme brulee look with the brown top. And if you want it all in one place, you could do that. If you want to drizzle it, you could do that. I like the abstract kind of presentation of this caramel on top without being perfect, but by all means, you do you. All right, so this caramel's on top. I really want to sneak a bite, but I'm not going to because I'm going to taste the creme brulee now. And I'm going to give this a taste to you. I make the hard choices. I make the sacrifices. So we're going to give this a taste. I'm going to show you guys the inside because it's super custardy, and that comes from the steam bath that we get that keeps that inside and the environment moist, but it's a pudding texture, so you get it really good. It's so smooth. You can feel it already. And then you lift it out and look at that. Look at that inside. It is super creamy. It looks full and rich. You can smell the vanilla. You can smell that brandy just kind of reminiscent in it. All right, I'm gonna give this a taste now. That is so good. Like I said, it tastes like ice cream because it's a very similar base. It's rich because we have that heavy cream and the egg yolks that came together to make this custard. But then it's sweet enough, it's not overly sweetened. It doesn't taste diet or keto. And the caramel just adds another level of flavor. It adds that like sweetness and richness without taking it too far over the top. And you can go a little sweeter with your caramel because the inside is not quite as sweet. I'm going to taste one more bite of this and then we're gonna make those brownie cakes. All right, I had enough creme brulee. So now we're gonna make little mini brownie cakes. They're like a hybrid between a cake and a brownie. Not a cakey brownie, but actually like a cake because we get a little bit more rise out of them. But we get that fudginess that we love in a brownie. So I'm starting out, I have some butter that's already melted into my mixing bowl. I'm gonna add in some vanilla bean paste, just a little, about a teaspoon's worth. And then I'm gonna add in my egg. And we're also gonna add in at this stage a little bit of salt and our leavener and spices. I like to mix this in right at the beginning because I feel like it gets very well incorporated and gives the baking powder a chance to activate. So this is gonna be a little bit of a spicy brownie, a little bit of Mexican hot chocolate brownie. So you have some chili powder and some cinnamon and then our baking powder right in here. So we're gonna add that directly to our mixing bowl. And we're just gonna whisk it to beat this egg. We just wanna make sure that the egg and the butter are kind of emulsified. They look really good together. And so we're getting that all mixed around, making sure that's smooth before we add in our sugar. So we're adding sugar. At this point, if you wanna make these keto, you can substitute that out for your non-sugar sweetener of choice. It really just depends on what you like and the flavor that you like. That's a half cup, and I find that right around a half cup, you really start to get that cooling effect of the e-sweetener. You guys know I can't say it, but of the e-sweetener. And so I like to use like a monk fruit or allulose, which is my favorite to use. And so we've got that mixed in, and this is the texture you're looking for. It's really sticky, like a toffee pudding kind of texture. And that just means that it's mixed really well and it's sweet, and the sugars are starting to dissolve into our eggs and our butter so that we get that really nice texture and it won't be grainy. And so now we're gonna add in our flour and cocoa powder. I use like a 3-to-1 sort of with cocoa powder and our flour. So we're gonna get a lot of chocolate flavor because we're using a high-fat cocoa, and that just means percentage-wise to the entire calories or grams. You look at the fat grams, and then you'll see if it's high fat or not, or how much fat it has. I'm gonna switch over to a spoon to really fold in our powders into our liquids. And so we're getting this in. And again, because this is more of a brownie cake versus a traditional brownie, we don't have to have it be really fudgy right now. We're just getting this all mixed in. Okay, so we mixed that mostly in, and now we're gonna add in our liquid just like we would do for a cake. This is heavy cream. You can use milk, you can use skim milk, you can use 1% milk. When you're adding it to a baking dish, it doesn't really matter when it is like a cake or something like that, what the fat content is. We're using it for milk, for the flavor, for the protein. And so now we're just adding that 1/4 cup of liquid into our mixture that we have here. That's gonna loosen it up. It's also gonna give it some nice richness. Again, this is like a brownie cake, and this is a recipe for 2. So again, you know, you could make 1 if you want to share, but I'm not the sharing type when it comes to dessert. So I'm not going to encourage you to do that either. And so now we've got this all mixed in. It's thick like a brownie would be. You would spread it out in the pan. And so we're going to drop that in. But before we do, we have some dark chocolate here. And you can use whatever kind of chocolate you want. And I like to use bigger pieces because you get good pockets of chocolate in there. So it's not too big, but they're not little tiny pieces where they just kind of dissolve into the chocolate either. And so I'm dropping in just a few to get that going in there. And we're gonna mix those around. You can use chocolate chips if you wanted to, but chocolate chips are more so designed to keep their shape when you bake them, so they don't give you that kind of pools of chocolate that you're looking for. And so now I'm gonna add them to my little heart pans here. These are just sprayed lightly with some baking spray. And I'm gonna add this. First, I'm gonna make sure my chocolate pieces are evenly dispersed because I don't want one to have all the chocolate and one not to, because I wouldn't be able to tell which one did. And then if I ended up with the one without all the chocolate, I'd be sad on Valentine's Day. So you wanna make sure it's even. And we're just putting these into our pans. You see how good this looks? It's all chocolatey and rich, delicious. I can already smell all that chocolate flavor. And then we're gonna bake these at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. We want the middles to be just about set, and this is more of a fudgy texture, so you can't really gauge sticking a fork in the middle or a toothpick in the middle, because you're gonna get kind of residual brownie no matter what. So you just wanna bake them. You'll know it's pretty much set, it's not raw. And because we have those chocolate pieces in there, you'll probably get some nice good pieces of chocolate when you take it out. All right, those look perfect. So I'm just gonna put these in the oven and I'll show you what they look like when they come out. All right, we're back. Our brownie cakes are on our plate. So everything looks really good and they look almost good enough to eat, but it's Valentine's Day, which means we're gonna make things very special. So you add a topping. And for me, with brownies, especially like brownie cakes, molten lava cakes, whatever, it's always powdered sugar. And so I just have like a little mesh strainer here with some powdered sugar in it. That's gonna help you get it on here pretty even. And we're just gonna dust it on. And it's okay if it gets on the countertop. It's so easy to clean up. But as it's on the plate and on top of the brownie cake, it just looks really beautiful. And if you're feeling really fancy, you can use one of those shakers that has the shape on it and get like a particular shape. But it's that easy and it's super beautiful. So I'm gonna grab a fork and give it a taste just for you guys. I have my fork, guys, so let's dig in. Trying to pick which one I want. This is how I serve people that I'm eating. I pick which one I want first because, you know, I think about myself, for better, for worse. So I'm gonna dig in, and it smells so rich and chocolatey, and the inside is like perfect. It's just like that fudgy brownie cake we wanted, almost like that molten lava texture. It's so good. The cinnamon peeks through, and that chili powder, which brings a whole different level to the chocolate. Those melty chocolate pieces really made the inside nice and gooey. But then we have the cake texture built in there too. It's literally a perfect dessert. You can serve this with a little vanilla ice cream. You could throw in some fresh strawberries or cherries, especially if you cook them down like a compote. You could even just drizzle some caramel on there or eat them as is. They're literally perfect just as they are. Those are my 2 desserts for Valentine's Day. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully this helps you celebrate with a low carb option and a very indulgent option. For more information and the full recipe, you can go to lizzieangel.com, and see you next time.